So today we're going to talk about the 1% mindset and how athletes that really want to achieve at a high level and like aspire for success in their sport, they really need to look towards just finding that little extra bit that can separate them from their competition. And a lot of that doesn't normally mean making huge changes or huge variations in their mindset. Sometimes it can just be lots of little things that add up to create these really big outcomes and these really big levels of success that the top athletes enjoy. So why don't you give me your thoughts on the 1% mindset?
Yep. Great topic. We were going to get to it eventually. It's come up early in the piece. I was speaking with a clinical psychologist yesterday and just mentioned, what topic do you think would be good to talk about? And he threw that one out there. It's not something that we've come up with. I mean, it's been around for a long time. But basically, once you get good at something, especially in sport, well, then you want to get to the next level, which is becoming one of the best of the best. And the reason that a lot of athletes do that is because the lion's share of rewards go to the people that are in like the top, 10%, 5%, 1%, whatever you want to call it. And then the rest of the people kind of contribute a lot to that. Mm-hmm. So, there's a particular mindset that I've seen working with athletes about the ones that kind of get to the top of the mountain versus the ones that are kind of struggling mid-pack. And it really is, as a lot of these athletes know, it's the mindset stuff that separates them. And it is the big factor. So, huge topic. Let's dive into it. Let's keep this to around about 10 minutes so that people don't just drift off into a coma. All right. So, look, that clinical psychologist recommended a book and you've got the book. Why don't you just talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so a really good resource that we've come across is a book called Atomic Habits by James Clear. And it goes towards the stuff that we're talking about today. And it's just creating an identity. So we want to create an identity of being an elite athlete. And that identity is created by the habits that you have, and the little things that you do day in, day out. And he talks about the actions that you take are kind of like a vote towards your identity. So maybe you want to work on a skill like meditating more. So by you taking the action to meditate for 10 minutes in the morning, you're taking a vote or making a vote towards building an identity of using meditation as an athlete. And so it sort of talks about how, while goals are important, the thing that we really want to be working towards to get success is like the habits and the behaviors and the things that we do day in, day out that all add up towards the success that we have. And one of the things he talks about is that we do not rise to our goals, we fall to the level of our systems. So that's kind of like the systems are like the habits and the behaviors that we do every day. So that's like the premise of the book. And it's really powerful stuff. It's
how relevant.
All athletes should be aware of.
So yesterday I was doing a session with a client and we were talking about this thing of meditation. And I said, is it good to meditate? And she said, yeah. I said, do you know how to do it? She said, yeah. I said, how often are you doing it? She goes, oh, I'm not doing it. And so this is one of those things that we're going to talk about, which is you got to identify some behaviors which are going to take you to the top 1%. Now, meditation is not going to be for everyone, but for her, it's a pretty important one. So what we decided on was that she was going to do 30 seconds a day, exactly like what you're talking about, to get into the habit of meditating. Okay? Because what's likely going to happen is that she will do 30 seconds a day, and that will naturally just grow anyway. Like she'll probably start doing a minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, and it just grows out of that little stuff. And we're going to talk a little bit about how 1% mindset stuff stacks. Another word you may be familiar with is called compounding. And it's a very powerful effect. And that's what we're looking for.
Exactly. While sometimes a good habit like what you're talking about, 30 seconds of meditation, it can be easy to dismiss in like the here and now because you're like, oh, doesn't really matter, 30 seconds.
Yeah.
what's the difference? If I do or I don't do it, it won't really have that much of effect. Kind of like eating an unhealthy meal. It's like, I'm not going to get fat straight away. It's not that big of a deal.
Yeah, doesn't matter.
But if you make that little decision every day for 2 years or 5 years or 10 years,
it's big.
It's massive.
Big.
So while these little decisions in the right now aren't very big, they are over the course of an athlete's career. So that's why we need to bring this mindset to how we approach being an athlete every day.
It's something that people will probably go, oh yeah, I know that, but it's not something that people do that well.
No.
Yeah. So you got to be careful with that. All right. So a couple other things content-wise today. I want to talk a little bit about how this relates to like an athlete with coaching and getting somewhere. All right. So let's just say you start working on your mind. All right. You work on your mind. Maybe you work on it on your own. You work on it with a coach, whatever. Okay. You do 3 months, 6 months working on the fundamentals, the basics, which should be like anything. You know, if you saw a physio, you might work on the basics of your mobility for 3 months, 6 months, blah, blah, blah. All right. Now, eventually, most people, if they work quite hard, diligently for 3 to 6 months on something, they actually get quite good, right? So you get to a point where you're quite good. Now, however long that takes you, a lot of athletes then get to that point where they're like, hey, you know, I'm doing all the right things. How come I'm not improving that much anymore? And this is where it starts to get really interesting. And this is where mental stuff becomes such a difference, where if you can then lock into this healthily obsessed mindset, and I want to talk a bit about that, because for the normal population out there, non-athletes, being obsessed about something is seen as bad, right? But if you're an elite athlete, being obsessed is what you want. Why is it that we want athletes to be obsessed? Why?
It's because, like, athletes, if you're trying to be an elite athlete, you need to be different. You can't just go about your daily life like everybody else does and expect to be like a unique individual that's really elite at something.
Exactly. Yeah.
So we can't have the same mindset as everyone else and expect to get different results. So
something's got to give, right? Something's got to give.
Yeah, and a mindset that's obsessed with this 1%, with this making these little decisions. And then also when you have this obsession, it becomes your identity as well. And that's the thing that sustains these habits. It's like, it's not like, oh, I need to train hard every day. It's like, I'm an athlete that trains hard. This is my identity. So it's like, I'm committed to these things because it's who I am, not a day by day decision.
Yeah. So I think where people get stuck in the kind of negative way of looking at obsession and this top 1% is, they don't manage the obsession well. I mean, there is some understanding that needs to, to be had with managing an obsession. It's not the easiest thing in the world to manage because it's a powerful force, but it's not the problem. The problem is, you've got to learn those skills to manage it. And so I think that's an important distinction to make. So, All right, let's talk a little bit about compounding and stacking. Thoughts on that?
Yeah. Well, I think, like the term with talking about money with compound interest, it's just how these things can grow. It's really hard for us to sort of conceptualize in the moment, but good habits that you build today can just, it's like hard for us to imagine how much impact it'll have in 2-5 years. And so it's something that we really need to add to our identity as well, is just an understanding for the power of how making these small decisions that lead to these good habits every day.
Yeah.
Even if I don't get in the moment reward for it, I have the mindset where I know there's going to be a compound effect. There's going to be a much bigger reward than just the reward of doing the behavior today.
Yeah. All right. So look, this is a tricky one. So most people are not great at delaying gratification, which basically means they want good stuff now. They don't want to wait for it, right? And if you're honest with yourself, most people are like that, right?
I think it's the way the human brain is. It's like, oh, we want it now, instant. I want to eat the tasty snack. I want to scroll on social media.
Yeah,
it's like instant satisfaction. It's kind of how your brain works.
Yeah. So let's not beat around the bush. We all have it. we just got to work on ways that we can kind of utilize that and work it in a way that helps us out rather than it hurts us, right?
Yep.
So this compounding stacking thing, I think you're onto the right idea with the whole money way of understanding it, because I agree with it. It's hard to understand how much good it's going to do us. So maybe looking at it in a way, which is like a bank account where you're like, hey, I've done my push-ups today and, I've done them now for 45 days and I can see it in my little recording that I've taken in my push-up log, and it's really starting to stack up now. You need that kind of visible evidence, because I don't think the mind records the stacking effect that well.
No. Yeah. So it's like we need that to be running kind of in the background to keep us motivated every time we might be like, doesn't matter if I skip today.
Yeah.
It's no biggie.
Yeah.
It doesn't really change anything.
Yeah.
Which is a very easy decision to make, and which is why a lot of people don't stick to this stuff.
Yeah. So true. So look, let's get into a couple of takeaways for people, right? So one of the things I would like people to do is to do research. Now, I love to give credit where it's due, and I was fortunate enough to be at a high performance camp, and we had Guy Leach. I don't know if people have heard of him, but he was a world Ironman champion many times over, and he was talking about exactly what we're talking about today, the top 1% mindset. So credit where it's due. Thanks, Guy Leach, for this. I thought it was a great idea. And basically what you do is you grab the top 5% in the world at your particular thing. So if you're a archer, find out what the top 5% in the world are doing in archery. Find out what we're looking for is what you were referring to before, what their habits are. They're all going to be a little bit individually unique in some way, but they're going to have some consistent patterns there of habits that they all do, right? And that's what you're looking for there. And you may need to do some internet research, or, you may need to get a bit creative in finding out this information. It's not going to be like presented to you in your lap like you would love it to. You're going to have to dig.
Mm-hmm. That's one of the great things about sport is aspiring to athletes from the past. Every sport is going to have someone that is a legend in that specific area. And like athletes today are so lucky. They've got the internet and they've got so many different resources where they can like, what did Michael Jordan do? What did like all these different like icons of their sport do? And then you can see, I can start to see some trends in the habits that they had.
That's right. So a good place to start where I look for is interviews. Okay. And obviously online is your best friend. Like very few people are going to be able to ring up Michael Jordan and go, hey, Mike, I just want to find out what your top 1% mindset is and habits were in your peak of your career. It's going to be hard to get a hold of Mike. He's probably going to be a busy guy. So watch for interviews. The other thing is autobiographies that people have written. Mm-hmm. You're going to find out some personal kind of information there, huh?
Yeah. They will have already been through it and done it all and had all the success and probably had the failures, and it's all there to learn from.
So grab a list, write down these habits, these top 5% habits, top 1%, whatever you want to call it, and away you go. Now, next point takeaway was you had an idea about pairing a good habit with an extra reward. Talk to us more about that one.
Yeah, so this one I think can really help when we're trying to develop some like new good habits. And like we talked about, normally say for a bad habit, the payoff is like right now. I don't know, you eat some junk food, tastes good right now, and the negative outcome will come off later.
Yeah.
Whereas with a good habit, usually you don't really get a payoff in the here and now. Like you don't get anything.
True. Yeah.
And the positive outcome will be in the future. And who knows, could be quite a long time until you get that payoff for doing the good action. So it can be a good idea to help sort of strengthen these good habits is to pair an extra incentive, an extra little bit of enjoyment from achieving it or from doing it. And so, for example, I have a habit that I wanted to improve, which was reading more. And so I wanted to read 25 pages a day. So with a pencil in my book, like say on page 25, I would draw a little circle, like a little box.
Yep.
And when I made it to the 25th page, I would
buy a Ferrari.
I would tick the box. and then I would take a photo of the page
Yep.
and send it to my friend. And so then every time I got to page 25, page 50, page 75, page 100, I would get like a little extra feeling of like achievement. Oh yeah, I did it. I achieved that little habit, that little 1% habit today. So I'm learning and I'm reading and I'm doing stuff, and I'm also getting like a little sense of satisfaction. So it's like good to add something to the here and now with these good habits that sometimes don't give you a payoff straight away.
Yeah, it's good. It's like, I've been a massive fan of games all my life. And actually, like in this 9 holes of golf yesterday with this clinical psychologist, he identified it on the second hole. He's like, you love games. You love learning through games, right? Mm. And one of the things with that is that exactly like what you say, you get these rewards in games that do, it releases chemicals in your brain which make you feel good, which makes you want to do stuff more. It's a very clever mechanism.
Yep.
There's a lot of video games that use stuff like that to keep people entertained for many, many years. So don't underestimate the power of what you're talking about, of attaching a reward to something.
Yeah, an extra incentive on top.
Yeah, very important.
We want to make good habits easy as possible.
I'm going with an old-fashioned one, but still, I think an essential one to finish off with, which is the takeaway I want people to grab onto is the 1% extra mile effort. Okay? Normally, people that are the best of the best, they put in the extra mile. And what that means is, practical example might be David Beckham, the soccer star. He might go to training, okay? And if he's a striker forward, he might put in 15 to 30 minutes after a training session to work on his penalty kicks, right? That is what's called going the extra mile.
Yep.
It's been around forever. Everyone knows about it. Not everyone's willing to do it. Why?
Mm-hmm. It's one of those things when, if you want to be elite and you want to be different to the norm, you have to do different things and have different habits.
And it's uncomfortable.
It's hard. Yeah,
it's uncomfortable. No one, you've trained hard all session. You're tired. You're hungry. You want to go home. But do you get yourself to do that extra mile? That is what we're talking about. So
and delay the gratification. Sometimes you don't get it right now.
Yeah. So what I would like people to do is to jot down what they think the activities are the extra mile in. So, could be anything. If you're a swimmer, maybe the extra mile is you make sure every session you turn up to 10 minutes early to get your warm up in. Okay. Mm-hmm. Maybe the extra mile is you do. Actually, this is where I discovered it. I was a personal trainer when I was around about 18 to 25, and I had a client who was a very successful businessman, and I would give him 10 reps to do something, right? Just say I gave him bench press. So he'd do 10, and then he'd do one more. And I'm like, mate, I told you to do 10, not 11. What are you doing? He goes, you don't understand, man. I said, what? What do I not understand? I'm the instructor here. And he's like, well, you got to go the extra mile to get anywhere. And that's one of the reasons. This guy understood the 1% mindset. And everything I gave him, he'd do one more. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I got to say, he improved pretty damn quick. Yeah. So, any thoughts to just close this off on?
Yeah, that one's great. And then I think just like a good summary that I got from Atomic Habits as well from James Clear was that sort of incentives, like the little thing that I talked about, they can sort of start a habit or get it through the initial stages. But what sustains the habit is our identity. So that's what you want to keep thinking of. You're like, I'm an athlete that goes the extra 1%. That's my identity now.
Yeah.
And so that's what's going to keep it going consistently, week in, week out, month in, month out, year in, year out. It's like, it's who I am. So incentives start, but identity maintains. That's what we want. It's who you are.
It's a big one, isn't it? Like, who are you? Are you a smoker? Are you a non-smoker? I mean, they dictate a lot of behavior, don't they? Those two terms.
Yeah. Yeah, it's super different to saying, I don't smoke or I'm not a smoker. It's like, they're a very different thing to like, no, thank you, I don't want it.
Yeah.
No, this is not who I am.
Not who I am. I don't go down that path. Yeah. Big. All right. Probably we went over budget again and made it into a 1 hour episode, but hey, it was good quality.
Was.
All right. Thanks, everyone. We will see you down the road. Look after your 1% mindset.